Deep in the American frontier, Sarah Mitchell and her young daughter Emma face death in the scorching wilderness. 8 months pregnant and betrayed by her late husband's brother, Sarah has nothing left but the clothes on their backs. For 3 days, they wander without water, the desert sun beating down mercilessly. The vultures circle overhead waiting. Just when all hope seems lost, a lone rider appears on the horizon. Thomas Hawkins, a cowboy with his own painful past, spots them through his old brass spyglass. His discovery changes everything, but he doesn't yet know the dangerous men hunting them or the deadly secrets they carry. Will his act of mercy put all their lives at risk? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. 3 days earlier, dawn broke over the Mitchell family ranch with deceptive serenity. Sarah Mitchell stood at her kitchen window, one hand resting on her swollen belly, the other clutching her husband James's wedding ring on its worn leather cord. 6 months had passed since the fever took him, leaving her with a working ranch, a young daughter, and a child on the way. The sound of horses approaching drew her attention. Through the window, she watched her brother-in-law Robert and his men ride up, their horses kicking up dust in the pale morning light. Something about their approach sent a chill down her spine, despite the early summer heat. "Mama," Emma's small voice came from behind her. "Uncle Robert looks angry." Sarah turned to her daughter, taking in the girl's sleep-tousled hair and worried eyes. At 6, Emma already had an uncanny ability to read people's intentions. It was a gift that had served her well since losing her father. "Go to your room." "Sweetheart, don't come out until I call you." Emma hesitated, her small fingers twisting in her nightgown. "But now, Emma." The screen door slammed before Sarah could finish the sentence. Robert strode into her kitchen like he owned it, his boots leaving muddy tracks on her clean floor. 2 of his men flanked him, hands resting too casually near their holsters. "Sarah," Robert's voice carried the same false warmth it had since James's funeral. "We need to talk about the ranch." Sarah's fingers tightened around James's ring. "There's nothing to talk about. James left everything to Emma and me." Robert's smile didn't reach his eyes. "That's where you're wrong, sister dear. See, I've been going through my brother's papers, and I found something interesting." He pulled a folded document from his vest. "Seems James took out a substantial loan last year, one that's coming due." "That's impossible. James told me everything about the ranch's finances." "Did he now?" Robert's mock sympathy made her skin crawl. "My brother always did try to protect you from unpleasant realities, but facts are facts. You owe the bank $5,000 by month's end." Sarah's mind raced. The ranch was profitable, but they'd sunk most of their money into new breeding stock this spring. There wasn't $5,000 to be had, not until the fall sale. "I can get an extension." "Already tried." Robert cut her off. "Banks. Not interested, but I am. I'm willing to take the ranch off your hands, clear the debt. You and Emma can stay on, of course. Under my protection." The last word carried a weight that made Sarah's blood run cold. She'd seen how Robert's protection worked for others in the territory, had watched families lose everything to his particular brand of mercy. James would never have gone behind. "My back for a loan. See for yourself." Robert tossed the document onto her kitchen table. "His signature's right there at the bottom." Sarah picked up the paper with trembling hands. The signature looked right, but something about the ink. She'd worked in her father's store as a girl, had learned to spot the subtle differences between inks used for legitimate contracts and the kind used by men with darker intentions. "This is a forgery." Robert's smile vanished. "Careful now, Sarah. That's a serious accusation." "You really think I don't recognize my own husband's signature? The way he crossed his T's, the slight shake in the M from his old riding injury?" Her voice grew stronger with each word. "I may be a woman, Robert Mitchell, but I'm not a fool." The change in Robert's demeanor was instant and terrifying. Gone was the pretense of family concern, replaced by something cold and calculating. He nodded to his men, who moved to block the doorways. I tried to do this the civilized way. He stepped closer, looming over her. But you always were too smart for your own good. Just like James. A floorboard creaked upstairs, Emma, no doubt listening from the top of the stairs. Sarah's heart raced, but she kept her voice steady. Get out of my house. Your house? Robert laughed, an ugly sound. By sunset there won't be a soul in this territory who'll believe you have any claim to this land. Not after what you did. What I did. He pulled a small leather pouch from his pocket, letting it fall open on the table. Gold coins spilled out, along with a folded paper Sarah recognized as the deed to the neighboring Walsh property. No, the pieces fell into place with horrifying clarity. You're going to say I stole this. Already did. Walsh was in town. At first light, raising hell about a pregnant woman, stealing his savings and his deed. Course he was mighty grateful when my boys found this hidden in your root cellar. Robert's eyes glittered. Imagine how folks will talk. Poor widow, driven, mad by grief, stealing from her neighbors. Best thing for everyone if she just disappeared. The sound of Emma's muffled gasp from upstairs made Sarah's decision for her. She had to get her daughter out of there. You won't get away with this. I already have. Robert grabbed her arm, his fingers digging in painfully. Now, here's what's going to happen. You're going to write a nice letter confessing your crimes. Then you and Emma are going to take a little ride. Way I hear it, the desert's lovely this time of year. Sarah's hand closed around James's ring, drawing strength from the memory of her husband. And if I refuse, Robert's grip tightened. Then Emma gets to watch what happens to thieves in this territory. Your choice. The desert sun showed no mercy. Sarah stumbled forward, one hand clutching Emma's small fingers, the other pressed against her aching back. Their third day of walking had stretched into an endless blur of sage and stone. The water Robert had generously left them ran out yesterday morning. Mama? Emma's voice came out as a croak. I'm scared. Sarah forced her cracked lips into a smile. Just a little further, sweet pea. There has to be water soon. But they both knew it was a lie. The desert stretched endlessly in every direction, broken only by rocky outcrops that offered brief moments of shade. Sarah had tried to keep track of their direction, but the sun's relentless glare and their meandering path in search of water had left her disoriented. 100 yards ahead, a vulture landed on a sun-bleached boulder, then another and another, nature's undertakers, patient and inevitable. Don't look at them, Emma. Look at me. Sarah knelt despite her protesting muscles, turning her daughter's face away from the birds. Remember what Papa used to say about the stars? Emma's eyes brightened slightly. That they're God's lanterns. That's right. And what else? That they'll always lead us home. Sarah swallowed hard. James had taught Emma about navigation using the stars, but what good were celestial guides when you had nowhere to go? Still, she forced enthusiasm into her voice. We'll rest until sunset, then follow the North Star, just like Papa taught us. They found meager shelter beneath an overhanging rock. Sarah tore a strip from her petticoat, already filthy from their journey, and used it to shield Emma's face from the worst of the sun. Her daughter's skin was red and blistering, her lips cracked and bleeding. The baby kicked, a sharp reminder of the other life depending on her. Sarah pressed her hand against her belly, whispering a silent prayer. The contractions had started last night, too early, too soon. She'd managed to hide them from Emma, but they were getting stronger. Miles away, Thomas Hawkins rode his regular patrol route along the edges of his property. The old brass spyglass hung at his hip, its surface scratched and dented from years of use. A recent bullet hole in his canteen had him watching the horizon. More carefully than usual, raiders had been active in the territory, and he'd had his share of run-ins. Something caught his eye, movement where there shouldn't be any. He pulled up his horse, removing the spyglass from its leather holder. Through the lens, he spotted them, two figures huddled against a rock face, surrounded by circling vultures. Steady, ghost, he murmured to his horse, who'd caught the scent of death on the wind. Thomas had seen similar scenes before. The desert claimed many who underestimated its brutality. But something about these figures, He adjusted the spyglass. One was clearly a child. The other, dear God. The words escaped him as he made out the woman's pregnant form. Thomas spurred Ghost forward, his mind racing. Who would leave a pregnant woman and child out here? The nearest town was 3 days' ride east, nothing but open desert to the west. This was no accident of poor planning or bad luck. As he drew closer, he saw the woman struggle to her feet, pushing the child. Behind her, even exhausted and near death, she stood ready to protect her young. The sight stirred something in him. Memories of another woman who'd shown similar courage long ago. "Easy now," he called out, raising his hands to show he carried no weapons. "I'm here to help." The woman swayed, but kept her stance. "Stay back." Thomas dismounted slowly, keeping his movements deliberate and calm. He'd seen that look in her eyes before, the desperate courage of someone with nothing left to lose. "Name's Thomas Hawkins. I've got water, food." He reached for his canteen, then remembered the bullet hole. "Well, had water, but my ranch is just a few hours' ride from here. You and your girl look like you could use a safe place to rest." The child peered around her mother's skirts, eyes huge in her sunburned face. "Mama?" The woman's strength finally failed her. As she crumpled, Thomas lunged forward, catching her before she hit the ground. The child screamed, a thin, terrified sound that echoed off the rocks. "It's all right, little one." Thomas cradled the unconscious woman carefully, noting with alarm the heat radiating from her skin. "I've got you both. You're safe now." But even as he spoke the words, his eyes scanned the horizon. No one ended up out here by chance. Somewhere out there, someone had meant for these two to die, and in his experience, such people usually came looking to finish what they'd started. Thomas's homestead appeared through the evening haze like a mirage, a sturdy 2-story house surrounded by cottonwoods, with a barn and corral set against the backdrop of purple mountains. Ghost picked his way carefully down the trail, mindful of his precious cargo. Sarah had briefly regained consciousness during the ride, long enough to tell him her name and Emma's, before the fever took her under again. The little girl rode in front of him, her body rigid with fear, despite her exhaustion. "Almost there, Emma," he said softly. "See those trees? They mean water. Good water, not like the alkali pools in the desert." Emma didn't respond, but her shoulders relaxed slightly at the mention of water. The house's wide porch offered blessed shade. Thomas dismounted carefully, keeping Sarah stable in his arms. "Emma, can you be brave and open that door for me?" She slid down from the horse and approached the door, like it might bite her. Thomas waited patiently, understanding her caution. When she finally turned the handle, he carried Sarah inside to, the downstairs bedroom he kept ready for guests, though he rarely had any. "Kitchen's through there," he told Emma, nodding toward the doorway. "Water pump's right by the sink. Go ahead, I'll tend to your mama." The girl hesitated, clearly, torn between thirst and leaving her mother. "Emma." Sarah's voice was barely a whisper, but it caught her daughter's attention. "Go on, sweet pea, I'm right here." Once Emma left, Thomas worked quickly. He'd learned field medicine during the war, skills that had served him well in the territories. Sarah's fever was dangerous, especially with the baby. He soaked cloths in cool water, placing them on her forehead and wrists. "My baby," Sarah murmured, trying to sit up. The contraction... "Shh." He pressed her gently back against the pillows. "Baby's staying put for now. You rest." From the kitchen came the sound of the pump working. Then quiet, too quiet. Thomas found Emma standing by the sink, an empty cup in her trembling hands, staring at something on the shelf. It was the wooden horse he'd carved years ago, its pine surface smoothed by time and small hands long gone. He'd meant to put it away with the other remnants of his past, but something always stopped him. "You like horses?" he asked, keeping his voice casual as he filled her cup again. Emma nodded, not taking her eyes off the toy. "Papa was teaching me to ride. Before he went to heaven?" Another nod. Thomas reached up and took down the horse, its weight familiar in his hands. He'd carved it during long winter nights, studying real horses to get the details right. The proud arch of the neck, the powerful legs, the flowing mane. "Your mama needs you strong," he said, holding out both the horse and the full cup. "Water first, then he's yours if you want him." Emma's eyes widened. "Really? Really? He needs someone to love him. Been sitting up there too long on his own." She took both offerings, drinking deeply before clutching the horse to her chest. "What's his name?" The question caught him off guard. "Well, he used to be called Scout, but you can give him a new name if you like." "Scout's a good name." Emma ran her fingers over the carved mane. "Papa said Scouts are brave." "That they are." Thomas turned back to the stove, blinking hard. Hungry? By the time he had soup warming, Emma had settled at the kitchen table, Scout galloping quietly across its surface. The toy's rhythmic clop, clop, clop brought back memories of another little girl, another kitchen, another life. A cry from the bedroom broke the moment. Thomas found Sarah trying to rise, her face flushed with fever. "Emma is fine," he assured her, easing her back down, having soup in the kitchen with her new friend Scout. Sarah's confused look had him explaining about the horse. As he spoke, something in her face softened. "You have children?" she asked. "Had?" The word came out rougher than he intended. "Long time ago." She reached for his hand, her touch fever-hot. "I'm sorry. Rest now." He pulled away gently, adjusting the cool cloths. "You and Emma are safe here. That's what matters." But as darkness fell over the homestead, Thomas took extra care, checking the locks. He loaded his rifle and settled in the chair by Sarah's bed, where he could watch both the window and the door. Scout's hollow hoofbeats continued from the kitchen, accompanied now by Emma's soft humming. The sound stirred something in his chest, an ache he'd thought long buried. These two had blown into his life like a desert storm, stirring up dust and memories. The sensible thing would be to get them well, then send them on their way. But as he watched Sarah's restless sleep, noted the familiar way Emma cradled the wooden horse, Thomas knew it was already too late for sensible. Whatever storm had driven them here was far from over, and God help him, he was already committed to seeing them through it. Dawn found Thomas in his root cellar, searching through an old medicine box he hadn't opened in years. The brass clasps were tarnished, but the leather still held strong. Inside, alongside carefully wrapped bottles and bandages, lay a stack of yellowed letters, reminders of another life, another name. "Looking for something?" He startled at Sarah's voice, nearly dropping the box. She stood at the top of the cellar stairs, pale but steady, wrapped in a quilt against the morning chill. "You shouldn't be up." He tucked the letters deeper into the box before selecting a small brown bottle. "Fever only broke a few hours ago. I'm stronger than I look." She made her way down the stairs carefully, one hand trailing the rough wall. "Emma told me you stayed up all night keeping watch." Thomas busied himself, measuring drops from the bottle into a cup of water. "Desert nights can be dangerous. Coyotes, mostly, and men worse than coyotes." Her voice was quiet but direct. "I saw you checking your rifle multiple times." He handed her the cup. "Willow bark tea, bitter but it'll help with the pain." Sarah took a sip, grimacing at the taste. "You're avoiding my question, and you're avoiding rest." He started to guide her back toward the stairs, but she stood her ground. "My brother-in-law won't stop looking for us." "I figured as much." Thomas sighed, gesturing to a barrel she could sit on. "Most folks don't end up dying of thirst in the desert by choice." Sarah settled onto the barrel, adjusting the quilt around her shoulders. Her eyes fell on the medicine box, noting its military-issue design. "You were a doctor during the war?" "Field medic." He closed the box, but not before she glimpsed the letters. "Learned enough to patch up what needed patching." "And after?" Thomas was quiet for a long moment, weighing how much to share. "Had a practice for a while, small town in Colorado. Wife, daughter." He swallowed hard. "Yellow fever took them both in 73. Sarah's hand found his arm, her touch gentle. "The wooden horse, it was your daughter's." He nodded, not trusting his voice. What was her name? Grace. The name felt strange on his tongue after so long. She was 7 when she loved horses, used to beg me to carve them for her friends. Understanding dawned in Sarah's eyes. That's why you gave Scout to Emma. Your girl needed something to hold on to. He straightened, shrugging off the weight of memories. Speaking of which, she'll be waking soon. Promised her pancakes. But Sarah wasn't done. What happened after you lost them? The question stopped him halfway up the stairs. Took to wandering, helped where I could, eventually found this place. He turned back to her. Look, Sarah, whatever trouble you're in, Robert framed me for theft, she cut in. He forged loan documents in my late husband's name, planted stolen goods in my home, and when I caught him at it, she hugged the quilt tighter. He said he'd make Emma watch what happens to thieves if I didn't confess. Thomas's hands clenched on the railing. Your brother-in-law sounds like he needs killing. He has men, connections. The local law won't touch him. She met his eyes steadily. I'm not asking for help. You've done more than enough already, but you deserve to know what kind of danger we might be bringing to your door. A sound from upstairs, Emma's footsteps crossing to the kitchen, broke the moment. Thomas offered Sarah his arm for the climb back up. Pancakes first, he said. Then we'll talk strategy. The kitchen was warming with morning sun when they emerged. Emma sat at the table, Scout prancing before her, her small face serious as she played out some imaginary scene. Papa used to make pancakes on Sundays, she said without looking up, with honey. The riders appeared just as Thomas finished the pancakes. 3 men, moving slow and casual, too casual. He'd seen that deliberate laziness before, in men trying to look less dangerous than they were. Emma, he said quietly, remember that game of hide-and-seek we talked about? The girl nodded, Scout clutched tight against her chest. Time to play. You and your mama go with Ghost. He knows the way. Sarah started to protest, but Thomas silenced her with a look. Through the window, he could see the riders clearly now. One had a distinctive wanted poster hanging from his saddlebag, Sarah's face drawn in crude charcoal strokes. The word thief blazed across the bottom. They're Robert's men, Sarah whispered, recognition and fear mixing in her voice. Go. Now? He waited until he heard Ghost's muffled hoofbeats heading toward the barn before stepping onto his front porch, rifle held casually but ready. Morning, gentlemen, his voice carried across the yard. Long ride from town. The lead rider, a weathered man with a snake tattoo crawling up his neck, reined his horse to a stop. Looking for someone. He pulled the wanted poster free, holding it up. Pregnant woman, little girl. Seen 'em? Thomas made a show of studying the drawing. Can't say that I have. Though if you're tracking someone through that western stretch, they're probably dead by now. Nothing but sand and rattlers out there. Snake tattoo smiled, showing tobacco-stained teeth. Funny thing. Found tracks leading this way. Fresh ones. Lot of tracks out here. Could be Apache. Could be my cattle. Thomas's finger rested lightly on the rifle's trigger guard. Could be you boys are a long way from where you ought to be. The threat hung in the air like gun smoke. Snake Tattoo's smile vanished. That an invitation to leave, friend. Just an observation. The second rider, younger and jumpier, reached for his holster. Thomas's rifle came up smooth as silk. I wouldn't. Snake Tattoo raised his hands slowly. Easy now. We're just doing our job. Woman's a thief, stole from good folks in town. Her own brother-in-law's offering a reward. Must be quite a reward to risk dying for it. You threatening us, mister? Thomas's laugh held no humor. Just another observation. See, I've noticed some interesting things this morning. Like how your friend there's wearing army-issue spurs. The kind that went missing from the Fort Collins Armory last month. Or how your own gun belt has notches that don't match any legal killings reported in this territory. The third rider, silent until now, stirred uneasily. How'd you know about Fort Collins? Same way I know you're all riding horses stolen from the Triple R Ranch. Thomas's voice hardened. Same way I know Robert Mitchell's been using you boys to run a protection racket across 3 counties. Snake Tattoo's hand inched toward his gun. You talk too much, old man. And you boys are about to make a choice. Thomas sighted down his rifle. Ride away now. Tell Mitchell you found nothing and live to see sunset, or... The young rider went for his gun. Thomas's first shot took him clean out of the saddle. His second caught Snake Tattoo's horse, sending both mount and rider sprawling. The third man wheeled his horse, but Thomas's third shot kicked up dirt right in front of him. "That was your warning," Thomas called out. "Next one won't miss." The third rider fled. Snake Tattoo struggled under his fallen horse, cursing. The young one lay still, his gun unfired in his hand. Thomas approached carefully, rifle ready. "Anyone else coming?" "Mitchell's got 20 men," Snake Tattoo spat. "They'll burn you out." "Maybe." Thomas kicked the man's gun away. "But you won't be there to see it." Later, after he'd bound Snake Tattoo and confirmed the young one was dead, Thomas found Sarah and Emma in the barn cellar. Emma ran to him immediately, wrapping her arms around his legs. Sarah followed more slowly, her face drawn with worry. "I heard shots. Had to be done." He smoothed Emma's hair. "You're safe now, but Sarah..." He met her eyes. "Time to tell me what you really saw, what Mitchell's so afraid you'll expose." Sarah sank onto a crate, one hand pressed to her belly. 2 weeks ago I found documents in James's study. Letters, contracts, shipping manifests. Robert wasn't just running a protection racket. He was using my husband's good name to smuggle guns to renegade bands south of the border. And James didn't know? He suspected something was wrong. That's why he started keeping records. Her voice broke. I think that's why he died so suddenly. The fever was too convenient. Thomas's blood ran cold. "You think Mitchell poisoned his own brother?" "I know he did. I found the evidence, hidden in his office the day he tried to force me out." Sarah's hands trembled. James wasn't just keeping records about the guns. He'd discovered that Robert was selling information too, about troop movements, of fort defenses. He's been helping raiders plan their attacks. "Treason," Thomas said softly. "No wonder he wanted you silenced." "What do we do?" Thomas helped her up, mind already racing through possibilities. "First, we move. That third rider will bring back more men, and we need better ground to defend." He looked down at Emma, still clinging to his legs. "How do you feel about a little adventure, princess?" Emma raised her face, tears streaking her dusty cheeks. "Can Scout come?" "Wouldn't dream of leaving him behind." Thomas managed a smile. "But first, I believe I promised someone pancakes. Even outlaws need breakfast." As they walked back to the house, Sarah's hand found his. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything." Thomas squeezed her fingers gently. "Don't thank me yet. Storm's just beginning." But looking at Emma skipping ahead with her wooden horse, at Sarah walking tall despite her fear, he knew he'd weather any storm to keep them safe. Sometimes he realized a man didn't choose his battles. Sometimes the battles chose him. Thomas spread the trail map across his kitchen table, its weathered surface marked with routes known only to those who'd learned the land's secrets. Faded ink traced paths through native territories, trails he'd discovered during years of trading with the local tribes. "The Apache know these passes," he explained, his finger tracing a dotted line through the mountains. "They'll help us if needed. I've dealt fairly with them over the years." Sarah leaned over the map, one hand absently rubbing her lower back. "How long to reach safety?" 3 days to the mission at Santo Cristobal." He glanced at her swollen belly. "Normally 2, but we'll need to take it slow." Emma sat nearby, feeding Scout bits of leftover pancake. "Will the bad men follow us?" "Not where we're going, princess." Thomas rolled up the map. "But we need to move fast. Pack only what you can carry." They worked quickly, gathering supplies while Thomas hitched the wagon. He'd hidden Snake Tattoo in the root cellar, bound and gagged. The man could survive a few days, longer than it would take his friends to find him. Sarah emerged from the house wearing a pair of Thomas's old trousers under her skirt, earning a raised eyebrow. "James taught me to ride astride," she explained, a hint of defiance in her voice. "Can't exactly side-saddle in my condition." Thomas hid a smile. "Practical woman." "Mama!" Emma's excited cry drew their attention. Look what Mr. Thomas gave me. She proudly displayed a small leather pouch attached to her belt, a child-sized canteen with Scout's image tooled into the surface. Thomas had worked on it while they packed, his fingers remembering old skills. For water, he explained, and Scout can ride in there too. Stay safe. Sarah touched the careful craftsmanship. You did this just now? Been a while since I had someone to make things for. Their eyes met, holding a moment too long. Sarah looked away first, cheeks flushed. They left as dawn broke, Thomas driving the wagon while Sarah rode Ghost beside them. Emma sat up front, her new canteen and Scout secure at her side. The morning air held autumn's first bite, promising cold nights ahead. Tell me about the Apache, Sarah said as they wound through the foothills. Will they truly help us? Thomas nodded toward distant peaks. Chief Running Cloud's people control these impasses. 7 years ago, his youngest son fell ill with fever. None of their medicine worked. He touched the medicine box secured behind the seat. I spent 3 weeks in their camp, treating the boy. He lived. And they remember. Out here, debts of honor matter more than written laws. They made good time through the morning. But by noon, Sarah's discomfort was visible. Thomas called a halt in a sheltered valley, helping her down from Ghost. The baby's restless, she admitted as he steadied her. Rest a while, I'll check the back trail. He found signs he didn't like, multiple horses moving fast. Roberts, men were gaining ground. When he returned, he found Emma showing Sarah a game she'd invented, making Scout jump from rock to rock while telling a story about a brave horse saving its family. Just like Mr. Thomas saved us, she concluded, beaming at him. Sarah's eyes held worry as she read his expression. They're coming? He nodded. We need higher ground by nightfall. There's a defensible position near the old mission ruins. I can ride, she insisted, but he saw her wince as she shifted. Wagon's got a bed in the back now. Rest while you can. She started to argue, then pressed a hand to her belly, face tightening. The contractions, they're getting stronger. Thomas felt a flash of fear. Too early. I know. She met his eyes steadily. But this baby might not care about our plans. He helped her into the wagon's bed, where he'd padded a space with blankets. Emma crawled in beside her mother. Scout clutched tight. Story, Mama? Like when I was sick? Sarah smoothed her daughter's hair. Once upon a time, there was a brave little girl and her wooden horse. Thomas listened to the story as he drove, hearing the love and fear woven through Sarah's voice. His hands tightened on the reins. He'd lost one family to forces beyond his control. He wouldn't lose another. The sun was setting when they reached the ruins. Old adobe walls still standing against time and weather. Thomas helped Sarah down, noting how she bit her lip against pain. I'll get a fire started, he said. Emma, stay with your mama. But as he turned away, small fingers caught his hand. Mr. Thomas. Emma looked up at him solemnly. Scout says you're scared too, but it's okay. Papa used to say being scared just means you love somebody. Thomas knelt, his throat tight. Your papa was a wise man. He's watching us, Emma said with certainty. Him and your little girl too. They're helping. Behind them, Sarah made a soft sound, half laugh, half sob. Thomas stood quickly, busying himself with the fire to hide his own emotions. But that night, as his new charges slept and he kept watch under stars so bright they hurt, Thomas found himself talking to Grace, to James Mitchell, to all the ghosts of his past. Help me keep them safe, he whispered. Help me do better this time. The wind sighed through ancient walls, carrying the promise of change. Tomorrow would bring its own battles, but for now, in this moment, they were together and alive. It would have to be enough. Thunder rolled across the desert like distant gunfire. Thomas stood in the mission doorway, watching storm clouds gather over the mountains. The air felt heavy, charged with more than just coming rain. Storms moving fast, Sarah observed, joining him. She wore a turquoise necklace he'd found among the ruins, a thunderbird pendant that spoke of old protection magic. Apache weather, he agreed. They say thunderbirds battle evil spirits in clouds like these. A sharp gust of wind swept through the ruins, carrying the scent of rain and something else. Horses. Thomas stiffened. Inside. Now, they barely made it to shelter before the storm broke. Rain lashed the adobe walls as thunder shook the ground. Emma huddled against her mother. Scout pressed to her chest. "Mama, I'm scared." "Shh, sweet pea." Sarah stroked her daughter's hair. "Remember what we said about thunder. It's just angels bowling in heaven." Thomas checked his rifle, then peered through a gap in the wall. Lightning revealed riders in the distance. At least 6, moving cautiously. "In the storm, Sarah." His voice was low. "There's something you need to know." She joined him at the wall, leaving Emma humming softly to Scout. "Your brother-in-law's men?" "Not all of them." He pointed to where the riders had dismounted. "See their horses? Mixed breeds, unshod, raiders from south of the border." "Robert's gun buyers," Sarah whispered. "They must have heard." "That? You know about their operation?" Thomas's jaw tightened. "Mitchell's not just trying to silence you now. He's protecting his buyers too." A massive thunderclap made them both jump. Emma's frightened cry drew Sarah back to her side. "What's in your satchel?" Thomas asked suddenly. "The one you wouldn't leave behind." Sarah hesitated, then reached into her skirts. She withdrew a packet of papers, water-stained but legible. James's proof, names, dates, weapon shipments, and this, she pulled out a letter. Robert's orders. To the doctor who treated James. Proof of the poisoning. Thomas scanned the documents quickly. This would hang them all. James knew the risks. Sarah's voice cracked. He was going to take everything to the territorial marshal. That's why they killed him. Another lightning flash, closer now. In its stark light, Thomas saw tears on Sarah's cheeks. He died trying to stop them. "I won't let that be for nothing." Thunder answered her words. Emma whimpered and Sarah winced, one hand going to her belly. "Contraction still coming?" She nodded. "Closer now. Thomas, if something happens—" "Nothing's happening." He cut her off. "Not to you, not to Emma, not to that baby. But if it does." She pressed the papers into his hand. "Promise me you'll get these to the marshal. Promise me Emma will be safe." Before he could answer, a new sound cut through the storm. Horse. Hooves on stone, closer than before. Thomas moved to the door, rifle ready. "Stay down, both of you." The raiders had split up, using the ruins for cover. Lightning showed them moving between columns, weapons drawn. Thomas counted 8 now. More than he'd first thought. A bullet struck Adobe near his head, sending fragments flying. He returned fire, hearing a cry of pain. 7, he muttered. Emma screamed as more shots peppered the walls. Sarah pulled her deeper into cover behind a fallen beam. "Thomas!" Sarah's voice held panic. "My water just broke." He swore softly. "Now, you sure?" Another contraction doubled her over. Answer enough. Emma looked between them, terrified. "Is Mama dying?" "No, Princess." Thomas forced calm into his voice. "Your little brother or sister's just picked a real dramatic time to arrive." More bullets struck the walls. Thomas fired again, then dropped back to reload. "Sarah, remember those Apache I mentioned? Might be a good time to put that Thunderbird to use. Pray for help." She clutched the pendant. Outside, the storm grew fiercer, wind howling through the ruins like lost souls. Then, above the thunder, came a new sound, a war cry that chilled the blood. More voices joined it, echoing off canyon walls until it seemed to come from everywhere at once. The raiders' shots faltered. In the next lightning flash, Thomas saw mounted figures on the ridgeline, Apache warriors, their presence as sudden and powerful as the storm itself. "Looks like someone heard those prayers." Running Cloud's warriors descended like the thunder. Spirits themselves, their attacks coordinated with the precision of men who knew every shadow of their ancestral lands. The raiders, caught between Thomas's rifle and this new threat, broke formation. Thomas used the chaos to move Sarah and Emma to a more defensible corner. Sarah's labor was progressing fast now, too fast. "Emma," he said quietly, "remember how brave Scout is. I need you to be brave like him now. Your mama needs you." The girl nodded solemnly, taking her mother's hand. Outside, the battle raged with the storm, but in their corner, something equally powerful was happening. Life, refusing to be denied even in the darkest hour. Thomas kept his rifle ready, guarding his newfound family as Sarah fought her own battle. The Thunderbird pendant gleamed in the darkness, its promise of protection holding true. The night was far from over, but they weren't alone anymore. And sometimes, he realized, that made all the difference. Dawn painted the desert in shades of gold, the storm's violence replaced by an almost unnatural calm. Thomas stood among the ruins, his old silver badge catching the early light. He'd kept it hidden in his saddlebag for years, a reminder of obligations, never truly forgotten. Chief Running Cloud approached, his weathered face showing respect for the badge. "Lawman," he said in careful English. "Long time." "Too long, old friend." Thomas gestured to the captured raiders, bound and guarded by Apache warriors. "Thank you for coming." Thunder Spirit spoke, said friend needed help. Running Cloud's eyes crinkled. "Also, my son saw your smoke signals. Very bad signals. Need practice." Despite everything, Thomas laughed. Never could get those right. Inside the ruins, Sarah rested against makeshift pillows, her labor temporarily eased. Emma slept beside her, Scout tucked under one arm. The girl had shown remarkable courage through the night, fetching water and holding her mother's hand through contractions. "The chief's medicine man wants to check on you," Thomas said softly, kneeling beside them. "He's good with difficult births." Sarah nodded wearily. "The baby's still too early." "2 moons early," Running Cloud said from the doorway. "But strong spirit, like mother." The medicine man worked quietly, using herbs and gentle pressure points. Sarah's face gradually relaxed as the pain eased. "We'll hold now," the old man announced. 2-3 days more. Better timing." Thomas helped Sarah sit up straighter. "We need to move soon. Those men out there." He nodded toward the prisoners. "They're part of something bigger, something I've seen before." He pulled out his badge, letting Sarah read the inscription. U.S. Marshal Service, Colorado Territory. "You weren't just a doctor during the war." "Served as both. After the fever took my family, I turned in my badge. Couldn't protect them. Didn't think I deserved to protect anyone else." His fingers traced the worn silver. "Spent years tracking gun runners, building cases, until one day I realized I was just running from ghosts." Sarah touched his hand. "And now? Now I've got something worth fighting for again." He met her. "Eyes, those papers you saved. They're exactly what I needed 7 years ago when I first started investigating Robert's operation. Couldn't prove it then. Couldn't stop them. And now we can. If we can get you all to safety first." He turned to Running Cloud. "The mission at Santo Cristobal. No good," the chief interrupted. "Bad men watch roads, but," he smiled, "no better place. Safe place, where lawman can become lawman again." One of the Apache warriors led forward a captured raider. The man's face a mask of defiance despite his bonds. "Tell him," Running Cloud commanded. The raider spat words in Spanish. Thomas's expression darkened as he translated. "Mitchell's gathered 30 men. They're watching all the roads to town, to the marshal's office. He's offering gold to anyone who brings him Sarah, dead or alive." 30 men, Sarah whispered. 30 men who don't know these mountains like we do." Thomas stood, decision made. "Running Cloud, if you're offering what I think you are." The chief nodded. "Summer camp in high valleys. No horses, but Apache horses can find way. Women there help with birth. Warriors guard passes." "It's settled then." Thomas turned to Sarah. "Rest today. We move at dusk." Emma stirred, blinking, sleepily. "Are we going on another adventure?" "Sure are, Princess." He smoothed her hair. "Think Scout's ready for some mountain climbing?" She held up her wooden horse. "Scout says he was born ready." The adults laughed, the sound carrying to where the captured raiders sat under guard. One of them, younger than the rest, watched the scene with growing unease. "They say you were a marshal," he said in halting English. "Say you never lost a man you were hunting." Thomas checked his rifle, old habits returning. That's right. Mitchell, he doesn't know. About the badge, about the Apache. No. Thomas's smile was cold. He doesn't. The young raider shuddered. Then he is already dead. He just doesn't know it yet. Thomas looked back at Sarah and Emma, at the family he'd found in the desert's cruel embrace. The badge felt right again, its weight familiar and purposeful. First, he said quietly, we get them safe. Then Robert Mitchell learns why some ghosts come back to haunt you. The mountain path, twisted through ancient pines, their branches laden with evening mist. Thomas led Ghost on foot, the horse carefully picking his way along the narrow trail. In the saddle, Emma dozed against Sarah's chest, Scout secure in her canteen pouch. Behind them, Running Cloud's warriors moved like shadows, alert for any sign of pursuit. The chief had sent runners ahead to prepare the camp for their arrival. Thomas paused at a switchback, offering Sarah his water skin. As she drank, he noticed an unsealed envelope tucked in his saddlebag, a letter he'd started writing years ago, but never sent. Rest a minute, he said, helping Sarah dismount. Emma didn't stir, exhausted from their journey. Sarah settled on a fallen log, one hand rubbing her belly. The medicine man's herbs are helping. Contractions have almost stopped. Good. Thomas sat beside her, the old letter heavy in his pocket. Sarah, there's something I need to tell you. About Grace? And your wife? He pulled out the letter, its pages yellowed with age. About why I understand what you're going through, losing someone to betrayal. Sarah took the letter carefully. In the fading light she read, My dearest Grace, today I tracked down the men responsible for your mother's death. The fever wasn't natural, it was poison in our well. They thought I was getting too close to their operation, thought killing my family would stop the investigation. They were wrong. I'm close now, baby girl. So close to proving everything. But some nights, watching the stars we used to count together, I wonder if the price was too high. If I should have listened to your mother's warnings about pushing too hard, asking too many questions. The doctor says Catherine knew something was wrong with the water. She kept you from drinking it, saved you that extra week. Gave me time to get home, to hold you both one last time. I failed you then, failed. You both, but I swear on everything holy I won't fail again. The men who did this will face justice, or I'll die trying. All my love, Papa. Sarah's hands trembled as she folded the letter. You were investigating gun runners back then, too. Thomas nodded. Different gang, same business. They're all connected. The weapons, the corruption, the killing. I followed their trail for years after Grace died. It led me here, to the territories, to Robert Mitchell's operation. And now the past is repeating itself. Sarah's voice was soft. Another family threatened by the same evil. No. Thomas took her hand. This time's different. This time I'm not alone. Their eyes met in the gathering dusk. Sarah's free hand touched his cheek, feeling the scars left by years of hard living. Neither am I. Emma stirred, blinking owlishly. Papa! They both froze. The word hung in the air between them, fragile as mountain mist. Sorry, Emma mumbled, still half asleep. I meant Mr. Thomas. It's all right, Princess. His voice was rough. You can call me whatever feels right. The girl sat up straighter, suddenly wide awake. Really? Sarah squeezed his hand. Really? Emma's smile could have lit the darkening trail. Papa Thomas, that's what Scout thinks you should be. A scout appeared from the shadows, one of Running Cloud's men. Chief says storm coming, must reach camp before dark. Thomas helped Sarah and Emma back onto Ghost. As they resumed their climb, he felt lighter somehow, as if sharing the letter's burden had freed something in his soul. The path grew steeper, but Ghost moved surely, carrying his precious cargo. Above them, the first stars appeared, the same stars he'd watched with Grace, the ones James had taught Emma to navigate by. Thomas. Sarah's voice drifted down. Thank you for sharing her with us. He looked up at his newfound family, silhouetted against the evening sky. Thank you for giving me a reason to live again. Thunder rumbled in the distance. But this time, The sound carried no threat, only the promise of cleansing rain, of new beginnings. And somewhere, Thomas thought he heard Grace laughing with joy. The Apache summer camp sprawled across a hidden valley, its lodges nestled between ancient standing stones. Snow-capped peaks surrounded them like natural fortress walls, their shadows deepening as the sun set. Running Cloud's daughter, Swift, Deer, helped Sarah settle into a lodge, while Thomas secured the horses. Emma followed the chief's grandchildren to where women worked at cooking fires, Scout still firmly in hand. "Your girl adapts quickly," Running Cloud observed, appearing silently beside Thomas. In his hands, he held a black bandana, one Thomas recognized. "Where?" "Scouts found tracks, fresh ones." The chief pointed to the northern pass. "Men wearing these, moving quiet but not quiet enough." Thomas took the bandana, his jaw tightening. The fabric still held the scent of tobacco, the same blend Robert Mitchell favored. "How many?" 12, maybe 15, found local guide." Running Cloud's face darkened. "Man who knows our paths." "Yellow Snake." Thomas spat the name. "Should have killed that traitor years ago." "He comes for woman, for papers." The chief touched his knife. "And for you, lawman." Inside the lodge, Sarah organized James's documents, while Swift Deer prepared medicinal tea. The younger woman worked with quiet efficiency, her movement speaking of years helping mothers through difficult births. "Rest now," Swift Deer said in careful English. "Baby waits, but not for long." Sarah nodded, one hand pressed to her belly. The contractions had eased during their journey, but she felt the child's restlessness. Thomas ducked through the lodge. Entrance, his expression grave. "We need to talk. They found us." "Not yet, but they're close." He sat beside her, showing her the bandana. "Mitchell's men hired a guide, a man who knows these mountains almost as well as the Apache." "Almost." "Almost." He managed a grim smile. "Running Cloud's warriors are already moving to secure the passes. But we need to be ready." Sarah touched the document spread before her. "Should we destroy them?" "No." Thomas's voice was firm. "James died to expose this truth. We honor that." Emma's laughter drifted in from outside, mixed with the sounds of children playing. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "She's happy here, safe. I haven't heard her laugh like that since James." Thomas took her hand. "Sarah, listen to me. Whatever happens, don't." She gripped his fingers. "Don't make promises you might not be able to keep." He reached out, brushing a tear from her cheek. "I was going to say, whatever happens, you've already given me back something I thought I'd lost forever. A family, a purpose." "Papa Thomas!" Emma burst into the lodge, her face flushed with excitement. "The big girls are teaching me to weave. Can I?" She stopped, seeing their expressions. "What's wrong?" Thomas opened his arms, and she came to him without hesitation. "Remember how brave you were during the storm?" She nodded against his chest. "Scout helped. Well, we need to be brave again." He looked at Sarah. "All of us." Swift Deer appeared in the doorway. "Chief calls council. All warriors." Thomas stood, but Sarah caught his arm. "I'm coming too." "Sarah, these men killed my husband, threatened my daughter." Her voice was steel. "I won't hide while others fight my battles." He recognized the look in her eyes, the same determination that had kept her and Emma alive in the desert. "All right, but Emma stays with Swift Deer." The girl started to protest, but Sarah knelt before her. "Sweet Pea, I need you to help the women prepare medicine. Remember how you helped when Papa was sick? This is just as important." Emma straightened, clutching Scout. "I'll be really brave, Mama. Papa Thomas will keep you safe." In the council lodge, Running Cloud's warriors gathered around a central fire. The chief used small stones to show enemy positions, demonstrating their approach with practiced precision. "Yellow Snake brings them through North Pass," he explained. "Think we not watch that way? Think we soft from summer living?" A warrior laughed darkly. "They think wrong. Mitchell's men are city fighters," Thomas added. "They don't know mountain warfare, but they're desperate, which makes them dangerous." "How long?" Sarah asked. Running Cloud studied the valley's map. 2 days, maybe 3. Weather changes everything. Thomas nodded to the mountains, where storm clouds gathered. Time enough to set a proper welcome. The council continued late, into the night, strategies forming and reforming like the shadows cast by the fire. When they finally emerged, the camp had transformed. Warriors moved with deadly purpose. Women prepared medicines and weapons. Children were gathered into central lodges. Sarah paused outside their lodge, looking up at the stars now hidden by gathering clouds. James would be proud, wouldn't he, of how far we've come? Thomas drew her close, feeling the baby move against him. He'd be proud of how strong you are. Both of you. Inside, they found Emma asleep, Scout standing guard from his perch on her chest. She stirred as they entered. Did you make a good plan? The best plan, Princess. Thomas smoothed her hair. No one's going to hurt our family. Not ever again. But as he took first watch that night, his hand never far from his rifle, Thomas knew the real battle was still to come. Yellow Snake would lead Mitchell's men through the northern pass, expecting to find an easy target. Instead, they would find a family ready to fight for their future, backed by warriors who remembered old debts and honored ancient bonds. Let them come, Thomas thought. Some prices were worth any cost to defend. Dawn broke with gunfire. Thomas yanked Sarah down behind a boulder as bullets chipped stone around them. Across the valley, muzzle flashes marked Mitchell's men advancing through the morning mist. Yellow Snake led them through the night. Running, Cloud growled from nearby. Used secret paths. Thomas checked his rifle. His wife Catherine's old Winchester, lovingly maintained through the years. How many got through? 20, maybe more. The chief knocked an arrow. But they are in our trap now. Sarah pressed a hand to her swollen belly, face tight with pain. The baby. Swift deer. Thomas's call brought the medicine woman running, low and fast. Get her to the birthing lodge. No. Sarah's grip on his arm was iron. Not without Emma. Emma's safe. Remember the plan. Their daughter was hidden with the other children in a cave high above the valley, guarded by the tribe's best warriors. Scout stood sentinel at her side, her own piece of courage to hold on to. More shots rang out. Thomas returned fire, his rifle's report echoing off canyon walls. 2 riders fell from their horses. Still a good shot, lawman, Running Cloud approved. Catherine's rifle never misses. Thomas worked the lever action smooth and fast. She made me promise to keep it clean. A war cry went up from the western ridge. Apache warriors launching their attack. Mitchell's men, caught between defenders, broke formation. There! Sarah pointed to a figure moving through the chaos. Yellow Snake! The traitor guide was trying to slip away in the confusion. Thomas drew a bead, but Running Cloud's arrow was faster. Yellow Snake pitched from his horse, betrayal repaid in full. Thomas! Sarah's cry made him turn. Her face was pale, hands clutching her belly. It's time. Now! He looked at the battle raging around them. Kind of busy, darling. Tell that to your child. Another contraction doubled her over. Swift Deer appeared like a spirit, taking Sarah's arm. Come, lodge is ready. Thomas watched them go, heart torn between following and holding the line. Running Cloud clasped his shoulder. Go! We hold here. Running Cloud. This is woman's. Battle now. The chief smiled. Besides, better to face Mitchell's bullets than angry wife, yes? A bullet kicked dirt at their feet. Thomas returned fire, dropping another rider, then sprinted toward the birthing lodge. Behind him, Apache warriors emerged from hidden positions, their coordinated attack driving Mitchell's men back toward the pass. Inside the lodge, Sarah gripped Thomas's hand as Swift Deer prepared her medicines. Emma, Sarah gasped between contractions. Need Emma. Too dangerous to... A small voice interrupted him. Mama? Emma stood in the doorway. Scout clutched. Tight. Behind her, one of her young Apache guards looked apologetic. She sneaked good, the warrior explained. Like little fox. Thomas started to scold, but Sarah's grip tightened painfully. Let her stay, she pleaded. Need my whole family. Outside, the battle raged. Inside, an equally intense struggle unfolded as Sarah fought to bring new life into the world. Emma held her mother's other hand, whispering encouragement. Scout watched from his place of honor on a medicine bundle. "Push," Swift Deer commanded. "Baby comes now." Sarah bore down, her cry mixing with the sounds of combat. Thomas supported her, marveling at her strength. "I see head," Swift Deer announced. "One more push." Gunfire erupted closer to the lodge. Thomas grabbed his rifle, torn between duties. "Go," Sarah managed. "Protect our family." He kissed her sweat-soaked forehead, then Emma's. "I love you both. We love you too, Papa Thomas." He emerged into chaos. Mitchell's men had breached the inner defenses, desperate now. Running Cloud's warriors fought hand-to-hand among the lodges. Thomas's rifle spoke once, twice, 3 times. Each shot found its mark. He worked his way toward the chief's position, where the fighting was thickest. A bullet creased his arm. Another tore through his coat. He barely felt them, Catherine's rifle growing warm in his hands as he administered frontier justice. Then cutting through the gunfire and war cries came a new sound, a baby's first angry wail. Thomas's heart soared. Running Cloud raised his bow in triumph. "New life comes," the chief's voice carried across the battlefield. "Great Spirit sends blessing." The Apache warriors renewed their attack with fierce joy. Mitchell's remaining. Men seeing their position hopeless began to retreat. Thomas turned back toward the birthing lodge, then froze. Through the smoke and confusion, he spotted a familiar face, Robert Mitchell himself, dismounted and moving purposefully toward the lodge where Sarah lay vulnerable. "Not this time," Thomas growled. "Not my family. Not again." He raised Catherine's rifle one more time, its worn stock smooth against his cheek. But before he could fire, another contraction seized Sarah. Her scream of pain carried clearly to where he stood. Mitchell heard it too. He smiled, cold and cruel, and drew his pistol. The moment stretched like desert heat. Thomas knew if he pursued Mitchell, Sarah and the baby would be defenseless. If he stayed, Mitchell would escape and return with more men, more guns. Then Emma's voice rang out from the lodge. "Papa Thomas, Mama needs you." The choice was no choice at all. Thomas turned his back on Mitchell and ran toward his family. Behind him, Running Cloud's arrow found Mitchell's leg. The would-be killer fell, cursing, as Apache warriors surrounded him. Thomas burst into the lodge just as Swift Deer lifted a squalling infant. "Son," she announced proudly. "Strong like father." Sarah reached for Thomas with trembling hands. "Did we win?" He gathered his family close, Sarah, Emma, and now this tiny new warrior who'd chosen such a dramatic entrance. "We won everything that matters." In the quiet after battle, Thomas sat beside Sarah's bed, holding their newborn son wrapped in a special blanket, one he'd preserved from Grace's infancy. The soft wool still held traces of lavender, his wife, Catherine's favorite scent. "He's so tiny," Emma whispered, peering at her brother's face. Scout kept watch from her lap, his wooden form pointing protectively toward the baby. "But mighty," Swift Deer said, mixing herbs for Sarah's recovery. "Born in battle, blessed by thunder spirits. Special child." Sarah touched the blanket's worn edges. "This was Grace's?" Thomas nodded, throat tight. "Catherine made it. Said every baby needs something soft to come into the world with." "What will we call him?" Emma asked. Before anyone could answer, Running Cloud entered the lodge. The chief's presence was commanding even in victory, though his eyes softened at the sight of the infant. "Mitchell lives," he reported. "Arrow in leg slows him, but he lives." Thomas felt Sarah tense beside him. His men, 6 dead, rest fled. Running Cloud's smile was grim. "But they will return. Man like Mitchell not stop until stopped forever. Or until he faces justice." Thomas carefully passed the baby to Sarah. "Those documents you saved, they're enough to hang him?" She nodded. "James made sure of it. Every transaction, every murder, every betrayal, it's all there. Then it's time." Thomas stood, checking Catherine's rifle. "Running Cloud, can your warriors hold the passes?" 3 days, maybe 4, then winter storms come. The chief looked at Sarah. Mother and child strong enough to travel by then? Swiftdeer nodded. If Great Spirit wills. He's going to need a name, Sarah said softly. A strong name for the journey ahead. Emma perked up. Can we call him James? Like Papa? Thomas and Sarah exchanged glances. James Thomas Mitchell. Sarah tested the name. A good man's honor carried forward. Thomas, Emma corrected. James Thomas Thomas. Because Papa Thomas is our papa now. The adults blinked back tears. Running Cloud cleared his throat. Good name. Strong name. He touched the baby's forehead in blessing. James Thomas, born of thunder and courage. May his path be true. Little James chose that moment to wake, his cry surprisingly robust for one so small. Swiftdeer shooed everyone but Sarah out so the baby could nurse. Outside, Thomas found Mitchell's blood trail leading toward the pass. The would-be killer had managed to escape during the confusion after the birth, though he wouldn't get far with Running Cloud's arrow in his leg. He bleeds, Running Cloud said, reading Thomas's thoughts. Makes easy trail to follow. No, Thomas's voice was firm. He'll expect that. Expect us to chase him. He looked back at the lodge where his new family rested. We do this smart. Do it right. Emma tugged his hand. Papa Thomas, are the bad men coming back? He knelt to her level. Not if I can help it, Princess. But first, we need to get you, Mama, and little James somewhere safe. Somewhere with laws and jails. And then Papa Thomas puts his badge back on, Sarah said from the lodge entrance. She held James to her breast, already showing the protective fierceness of a mother mountain lion. Make sure Robert Mitchell never hurts another family. Swift. Deer tried to urge Sarah back to bed, but she stood her ground. I'm done running, done hiding. Her eyes met Thomas's. We face this together. Running Cloud nodded approval. Woman warrior speaks truth. Best victory is one whole family wins. Thomas looked at them. Sarah standing tall despite her recent labor, newborn James nursing contentedly, Emma clutching Scout with determined faith. His family, his reason to put the badge back on instead of simply seeking revenge. Together. Then, he agreed, but first you all rest. Running Cloud and I will plan our next move. Emma hugged his legs. Promise you'll be here when I wake up? Promise, Princess. He smoothed her hair. Someone's got to tell James stories about his brave big sister. As his family settled back into the lodge, Thomas allowed himself a moment to remember Catherine's smile, Grace's laugh, the life he'd had before, the life he'd thought lost forever. Now, holding his old badge, he silently thanked them for teaching him love could heal, for giving him the strength to try again. Little James's cry rose once more, strong and determined, a new voice calling him home. 3 days passed in the Apache camp, each sunrise bringing colder winds down from the peaks. Thomas spent the mornings with Running Cloud's warriors, watching the passes, while afternoons found him with his new family. Sarah grew stronger daily, and little James thrived despite his early arrival. On the 4th morning, Thomas brought out the family Bible he'd carried through years of wandering. Its leather cover was worn smooth by time, its pages holding records of births, deaths, and marriages stretching back generations. Your father added your birth here, he told Emma, showing her the careful script. See? Emma Grace Mitchell, born under spring stars. She traced the words with a small finger. Can we add James? That's why I brought it out. He dipped his pen in ink. Want to help? Together they wrote, James Thomas Thomas, born in thunder and battle, blessed by Apache spirits. Below that, Emma insisted on adding brother to Emma and Scout. Sarah watched from her bed, holding James. Room for one more entry? Thomas looked up. What did you have in mind? Marriage. Her voice was soft, but certain. If you're asking. If I'm... He set down the pen carefully. Sarah, are you sure? After everything, I'm more sure than ever. She met his eyes. Emma needs a father, James needs his papa, and I need the man who saved us in more ways than just from the desert. Emma bounced excitedly. Say yes, Papa Thomas. He moved to Sarah's side, taking her free hand. I should do this properly. On one knee with a ring. You've already given us everything that matters. She squeezed his fingers. The rest is just details. Running Cloud's voice came from the doorway. Among my people, man proves worth through actions, not words. The chief smiled. Think you proved enough, lawman. Swift Deer appeared behind her father, carrying a small bundle. Wedding clothes, she announced proudly. Made by women of tribe, special blessing in every stitch. Thomas looked at the chief. You knew? Saw it in your eyes, same look I had watching my wife with our son. Running Cloud's face grew serious. But first, must deal with evil man, must make family safe. Mitchell's men are gathering in town. Thomas agreed, watching all the roads. Not all roads. Running Cloud's eyes gleamed. Apache no secret way, through Winter Canyon. Sarah sat up straighter. The same canyon James found? The one in his notes? Thomas pulled out the documents they'd saved. Among James's careful records of Mitchell's gun running was a map showing a narrow canyon, one the smugglers used to move weapons unseen. Mitchell's own route, Thomas mused. He wouldn't expect us to know it, or to use it against him. Sarah shifted James to her shoulder. The Territorial Marshal's office is just 2 days' ride from the canyon's far end. Emma picked up Scout, making him prance. Are we going on another adventure? The biggest one yet, Princess. Thomas touched the badge at his hip. But this time, we have law on our side. Swift Deer laid out the wedding clothes, a buckskin dress for Sarah, adorned with tribal symbols of protection, and a matching shirt for Thomas. Wear these when you face Mitchell, she instructed. Apache spirits guide your bullets, guard your hearts. Sarah touched the soft leather. How soon can we move? Running Cloud consulted the sky. Storm comes? 2 days, maybe 3. Good cover. For travel. Time enough to make things proper, Thomas said softly, taking Sarah's hand again. Time enough to give our children a true family name before we face whatever comes. The chief nodded approval. Tonight, then, under stars and spirits. Apache wedding, quick but strong. Emma clapped her hands. Can Scout be ring-bearer? Wouldn't have it any other way, Princess. As preparations began around them, Thomas opened the Bible to a fresh page. There, beneath James's birth record, he wrote, Thomas Hawkins and Sarah. Mitchell married under autumn stars, witnessed by Apache friends and loving children. One more thing. Sarah took the pen, adding, love born in desert, tempered by storm, blessed by second chances. Outside, the wind sang through ancient pines. Storm clouds gathered over distant peaks. But here, in this moment, surrounded by family, both old and new, Thomas felt only peace. Tomorrow would bring its challenges. Mitchell and his men still waited. Justice remained to be served. But tonight was for joy, for healing, for love restored. Little James stirred, his tiny hand gripping Thomas's finger. Emma leaned against his side, Scout standing proud in her lap. Sarah's eyes held promises of future happiness. Sometimes, Thomas reflected, the greatest battles won were the ones fought not with guns, but with open hearts. Robert Mitchell stood at his office window, absently turning his gold pocket watch between his fingers. The timepiece had been a gift from James, his last gift before Mitchell had arranged his brother's death. Its steady ticking now matched the throbbing in his arrow-wounded leg. Sir, one of his men appeared in the doorway. Riders spotted near Winter Canyon. Mitchell's grip tightened on the watch. How many? Small group, woman and child among them. Sarah, he smiled coldly, finally making a mistake. There's more. The man shifted uneasily. Marshal's office received a telegram. Federal agents are riding from Denver. 2 days out, maybe less. Mitchell slammed the watch down. Then we finish this today. Get the men ready. Outside town, Thomas led his family along the narrow canyon trail. Sarah rode Ghost, James secure in a sling across her chest. Emma sat. Before her, Scout keeping watch from his place of honor in her canteen pouch, Running Cloud's warriors had melted into the rocks around them, invisible but present. "Mitchell's watchers spotted us," Thomas said quietly. "Just like we planned." Sarah nodded, one hand protective over James. "He'll come himself. His pride won't let him send just men." "Good." Thomas touched his badge. "Time he faced real justice." Emma pointed ahead. "Papa Thomas, look!" The canyon opened into a wider valley. At its center stood an abandoned mission church, its adobe walls still strong despite years of weather. Thomas had chosen this spot carefully, holy ground for their final stand. "Remember the plan, Princess?" he asked Emma. She nodded solemnly. "Stay with Mama and James in the secret room. Don't come out until you or the Apache give the special signal." "That's my girl." They reached the church as the sun climbed toward noon. Inside, Thomas and Running Cloud's warriors had already prepared. The old confessional had been reinforced, turned into a hidden shelter. Supplies, water, and ammunition were carefully placed. Sarah touched the turquoise thunderbird still hanging at her throat. "I should be fighting beside you." "You are." Thomas drew her close, careful of James. "By keeping our children safe, by being here to see justice done." Running Cloud appeared like a shadow. "Riders coming, many horses." Thomas kissed Sarah quickly, then Emma. "Time to hide, my loves." "Papa Thomas," Emma held out Scout. "He wants to help you fight." Thomas took the wooden horse, his throat tight. "I'll keep him close, Princess. He'll help me be brave. Once." His family was secured in the hidden room. Thomas took his position. Through a window, he watched dust rising on the valley floor. Mitchell's men were coming, more than 20 riders, moving fast. "Your wife's rifle is ready," Running Cloud said softly, nodding to where Catherine's Winchester waited. "Today, she helps protect my new family." Thomas touched the wooden horse in his pocket. "They all do." The riders thundered into view. Robert Mitchell led them, his gold watch catching the sun as he reined up before the church. His leg was bandaged where Running Cloud's arrow had struck, but his face showed only arrogance. "Sarah!" he shouted. "Come out and face justice." Thomas stepped onto the church steps, badge gleaming. "Federal Marshal Hawkins, only justice here today is the laws." Mitchell's laugh was ugly. "Marshal, you're nothing but a desert rat who got lucky." "Maybe." Thomas's voice carried clearly. "But I've got witnesses to murder, documents proving treason, and enough evidence to hang you 10 times over." "Evidence?" Mitchell gestured to his men. "Look around, Marshal. Only evidence here will be another tragic accident. A woman gone mad with grief, turning on the man who tried to help her. Such a pity about the children." Thomas's hand moved to Catherine's. "Rifle. Last chance, Mitchell. Surrender to the law." "Law?" Mitchell drew his pistol. "I am the law in this territory." The first shot came from behind, one of Mitchell's men trying to circle the church. An Apache arrow took him from his saddle. The valley erupted in gunfire. Thomas's rifle sang out, dropping riders with mechanical precision. Running Cloud's warriors struck from hidden positions, their arrows creating chaos in Mitchell's ranks. But Mitchell himself had dismounted, using the confusion to slip inside the church through a side door. Thomas caught the movement too late. "Running Cloud!" he called. "Hold them here!" Inside the church, Thomas moved carefully between old pews. Dust motes danced in light from high windows. Somewhere ahead, boot steps scraped on adobe floor. "I know about your first family, Hawkins." Mitchell's voice echoed. "Know how you failed them. History repeats itself, doesn't it?" Thomas touched Scout in his pocket, drawing strength. "Not this time." A shot splintered the pulpit beside him. Thomas rolled, returning fire. Mitchell cursed, hit, but not seriously. "You're right about one thing," Thomas called. "I did fail. Before. Let grief turn me into a wanderer. Let guilt blind me to new chances." He moved forward, Catherine's rifle ready. "But God gave me a second chance. A new family to protect. This time I won't fail." Mitchell's laugh turned to a cough. God abandoned this territory to men like me long ago." "No," Thomas's voice was steel. "He just waited for men like me to stand against you." The gold. Watch clattered across the floor, Mitchell's signal of location. Thomas spun, rifle raised. 2 shots rang out as one. Smoke cleared in the church's nave. Thomas stood over Mitchell's fallen form, Catherine's rifle still trained on his enemy. The iron cross from his old marshal's badge glinted where it had deflected Mitchell's bullet. A final gift from his past, saving his future. "You're under arrest," Thomas said quietly, "for the murder of James Mitchell, gun-running, treason, and attempted murder of Sarah and Emma Mitchell." Mitchell clutched his bleeding shoulder, his facade of power finally shattered. "You've got nothing, no witnesses, no—" "He has everything," Sarah's voice rang from the hidden doorway. She held James's documents in one hand, her other protective around Emma. "Every transaction, every betrayal, even the orders you gave to poison James." "Impossible. Those papers burned." "You burned copies." Sarah's smile was cold. "James was smarter than you thought. He knew you'd betray him eventually." Outside, the gunfire had ceased. Running Cloud appeared in the doorway, his warriors herding the surviving members of Mitchell's gang. 7 surrendered, the chief reported. "Rest fled, or feed ravens now." Emma darted from her mother's side, Scout held high. "Did Scout help you be brave, Papa Thomas?" "Bravest I've ever been, Princess." Thomas kept his rifle steady on Mitchell. "Running Cloud, would you be kind enough to escort Mr. Mitchell to meet the federal agents? I believe they're very interested in his business practices." The chief's warriors moved forward, but Mitchell wasn't finished. With desperate speed, he drew a hidden derringer. "If I'm hanging, I'm taking you with—" Catherine's rifle cracked one final time. Mitchell sprawled backward, the small gun unfired. The gold watch spun from his pocket, landing face up between them. Its crystal was shattered, hands frozen at high noon. "Justice," Running Cloud said softly, "comes to all men. Eventually." Thomas lowered the rifle, suddenly bone-weary. Sarah was at his side instantly, supporting him as he swayed. "It's over," she whispered. "Really over." Emma picked up Scout from where he'd fallen in the final confrontation. The wooden horse had acquired a new nick, a bullet graze, that somehow made him look even braver. "Scout says we won," she announced. James chose that moment to wake, his cry echoing in the church's heights. The sound seemed to wash away the last traces of gunsmoke, replacing violence with new life. Thomas gathered his family close, feeling the weight of his badge, no longer a burden, but a symbol of protection. "The federal agents will want statements," he said, "testimony about everything Mitchell did." Sarah nodded against his chest. "James's documents will corroborate every word. His final gift to justice. And then—" She pulled back, meeting his eyes. "And then we go home, all of us." "Home," Emma echoed, making Scout prance. "With Papa Thomas and Mama and James and Scout." Running Cloud's warriors had already begun securing the prisoners. The chief himself approached, holding the iron cross that had saved Thomas's life. "Time to put this back where it belongs," he said, handing over the badge. "Marshall's work not finished in territories." Thomas looked at Sarah. She smiled. "The ranch needs a lawman's protection, and I hear the Marshal's office is looking for a new territorial deputy." "A deputy with a family," Thomas mused. "Could be dangerous. Could be perfect." Sarah touched his cheek. "Besides, someone needs to keep Emma from teaching James to be too much like his papa." Their daughter giggled. "Too late. Scout's already showing him how to be brave." Thomas felt laughter bubble up, real laughter, the kind he hadn't known since Grace's death. Here, in this place of both violence and redemption, his past and future had finally merged into something whole. "Running Cloud," he called, "would you and your people honor us by visiting when we're settled?" The chief's eyes crinkled. "Winter camp not far from Mitchell Ranch. Good grazing there." "The ranch needs a new name," Sarah said suddenly. "Too many shadows in the old one." Emma bounced excitedly. "Can we call it Scout's Haven, since he helped save us?" Thomas felt the wooden horse in his pocket, remembering Grace's joy when he'd first carved it. remembering how that simple toy had helped heal both Emma's fears and his own grief. Scout's Haven, he tested the words. A place of safety, of new beginnings. Sarah's eyes shone. Perfect. They emerged from the church into clear autumn sunlight. The federal agents were visible now, dust rising from their approach. Soon there would be statements to give, evidence to present, justice to formalize. But for now, Thomas simply held his family, watching Emma show Scout to the Apache children while Sarah hummed softly to James. The iron cross at his chest felt right again, its weight balanced by the wooden horse in his pocket. Sometimes he realized the best justice wasn't found in revenge, but in living well, in turning places of pain into sanctuaries of hope. Scout's Haven waited, and this time he was ready to be the protector his family needed, both as a marshal and as the father his heart had always yearned to be again. 2 months after Mitchell's arrest, winter settled softly over Scout's Haven. The ranch had transformed under its new name and purpose. Thomas stood on the porch, watching snow dust the fresh-painted fences. The property deed in his hand made everything official, the land now registered jointly to Thomas and Sarah Hawkins, with Emma and James as inheritors. Inside, warmth and light spilled from every window. Sarah's voice carried out into the evening, singing James to sleep, while Emma practiced her letters at the kitchen table. Scout stood guard by the baby's cradle, his wooden form casting long shadows in the lamplight. The sound of hooves brought Thomas's hand instinctively to his badge, but it was only Running Cloud, leading a small group of his people down from their winter camp. "Marshal," the chief greeted, dismounting. "Brought gifts for naming ceremony," Thomas smiled. Among the Apache, a child's 2nd month marked their true entry into the tribe. James would be blessed under both Christian and native traditions, a bridge between worlds, like the ranch itself. "Sarah's been cooking since dawn," Thomas said, welcoming them inside. Emma's even learned some Apache words for the ceremony. The kitchen was a scene of domestic joy. Emma ran to hug Running Cloud's wife, chattering in a mix of English and halting Apache. Sarah looked up from the cradle, her face glowing with contentment. "Little warrior grows strong," Running Cloud observed, placing a hand-worked silver rattle beside the baby. "Like father, like mother, like sister," Emma corrected proudly. "I'm teaching him to be brave. Scout helps." The wooden horse had gained a place of honor on the mantle, though Emma still carried him on her daily adventures. Thomas often found her showing James the nick from Mitchell's bullet, telling her brother stories of courage and family. Swift. Deer set a bundle on the table. "Wedding clothes," she explained. "Made new for winter. Old ones have too much battle medicine. These for peace, for home." Sarah touched the soft buckskin gratefully. The clothes they'd worn during the fight had been retired, kept as reminders, but no longer needed for protection. "Federal agents came yesterday," Thomas told Running Cloud as they sat down to eat. "Mitchell's trial starts next month in Denver." The chief nodded. "Many warriors will testify, tell how he broke treaties, sold bad guns. James's documents sealed his fate," Sarah added. "The prosecutors say it's one of the strongest cases they've seen. Robert Mitchell and his whole operation will face justice." Emma looked up from her plate. "Will the bad men come back?" "No, sweet pea." Thomas touched his badge. "Your papa made sure of that. This territory's changing, laws getting stronger, justice more certain. And Scout's Haven will be part of that change," Sarah said firmly. "A place where people can find help, find safety." Running Cloud smiled. "Good name, good purpose. Ranch becomes like Marshall who owns it, protector of those in need." As if agreeing, James cooed from his cradle. Sarah lifted him, bringing him to the table. In the lamplight, he had James Mitchell's eyes, but Thomas's quiet strength. "Speaking of protection," Thomas said, pulling out a letter. "Got this from the territorial governor today. They're expanding the marshal's service, setting up new offices to cover the growing settlements." Sarah read the letter, her eyes widening. They want to base the new office here, at Scouts Haven? Thomas nodded. Running Cloud's people know these lands better than any, between their knowledge and our position. He gestured to the surrounding territory. We could help a lot of people. A safe haven, Emma said thoughtfully. Like Scout was for me? Exactly like that, Princess. Running Cloud raised his cup. To Scouts Haven, where law meets mercy, where past meets future. They drank the toast as night settled over the ranch. Outside, snow continued to fall, wrapping the world in peaceful white. The property deed caught the lamplight, its fresh ink declaring what they'd all known in their hearts. This was more than just a ranch. It was a sanctuary built on love and justice, protected by both law and honor. A place where second chances became new beginnings, where broken families could heal and grow strong again. James reached for Scout on the mantel, his tiny fingers grasping at hope and heritage. Emma carefully brought the wooden horse down to her brother. "See," she whispered, "he's always watched over us. Now we get to watch over others." Thomas held Sarah close as their children bonded over the simple toy that had helped save them all. Sometimes the strongest foundations were built on the smallest things. A wooden horse, a marshal's badge, a family's love. Scouts Haven was just the beginning. Their real adventure, they knew, was only just beginning. Spring came early to Scouts Haven, painting the ranch in wildflower colors. Thomas stood beside the old mission church, now restored and ready for a happier occasion than its last use. The family portrait in his pocket was freshly taken. Sarah, Emma, James, and himself, with Scout held proudly between them. "Ready, Marshal?" Running Cloud appeared, wearing formal Apache garments beneath his Christian best. "Ready as I'll ever be." Thomas adjusted his tie. "Sarah insists we do this properly this time. No battle dress, no imminent danger." Inside, the church bloomed with desert flowers. Emma scattered petals down the aisle, Scout decorated with a tiny bow tie she'd insisted on making herself. 6-month-old, James watched from his grandmother's swift deer's lap, bright-eyed and alert. When Sarah appeared in the doorway, Thomas's heart stopped. She wore white, but with Apache beadwork honoring both their cultures. The Thunderbird pendant still graced her throat, no longer for protection, but for the memory of how they'd found each other. "Papa Thomas," Emma whispered loudly from her place beside him. "You're crying." He was. But so was Sarah as she reached him, taking his hands before the gathered crowd of settlers, Apache friends, and fellow lawmen. The territorial judge spoke the formal words, but Thomas and Sarah had written their own vows. "I thought I'd lost everything," Thomas said, his voice carrying to the rafters that had once echoed gunfire. "But God led me to the desert that day for a reason. Led me to find not just you and Emma, but myself again." Sarah squeezed his hands. "You saved us twice. First from death, then from fear. You taught Emma that good men still exist, gave James a legacy of honor instead of shame. And Scout helped," Emma chimed in, making everyone laugh. "And Scout helped," Sarah agreed, smiling. "So I promised to build this life with you, to make Scouts Haven everything we dreamed. A place of justice and mercy, of second chances and new beginnings." "I promise," Thomas replied, "to love you and our children with everything I am, to honor the trust you've placed in me as husband, father, and protector, to make our home a beacon of hope for others, as you've been for me." The judge pronounced them officially wed, though, as Running Cloud pointed out later, the Apache had considered them married since that first ceremony in the mountains. At the celebration afterward, Emma proudly showed James the family portrait, telling him yet again how Scout had helped save them all. The wooden horse stood in a place of honor beside the wedding cake, his battle scar now adorned with a tiny deputy's badge of his own. "Think James will want his own Scout someday?" Sarah asked, watching their children. Thomas smiled. "Already working on it, though Emma says the original Scout has to approve any new ones." They looked out over their gathered community, Apache, and settler, lawman, and civilian, all coming together to celebrate not just a wedding, but the promise Scouts Haven represented. The territorial governor himself had come, bringing news that Mitchell's conviction was secure. The former gun runner would never again threaten another family. More importantly, the governor announced Scouts Haven's official designation as both a marshal's station and a sanctuary for those in need. Perfect timing, Sarah murmured. Running Cloud says there's a family heading this way, coupled with young children fleeing trouble back east. Thomas touched his badge, then the wooden horse in his pocket. Then we'll be ready for them, just like we're ready for whatever else tomorrow brings. Emma brought James to them, Scout keeping watch from her pocket. The baby reached for the wooden horse, already knowing its importance to their family story. Tell it again, Emma pleaded, about how we became a family. Thomas gathered them close, feeling the perfect rightness of this moment. Once upon a time, he began. In the harsh desert sun, a brave little girl and her wooden horse helped save not just her mother, but a lonely man's heart. Above them, the desert stars began to appear. The same stars that had guided them all home to Scouts Haven, to each other, to love's perfect justice. Deep in the American frontier, Sarah Mitchell and her young daughter Emma faced death in the scorching wilderness. 8 months pregnant and betrayed by her late husband's brother, Sarah has nothing left but the clothes on their backs. For 3 days, they wander without water, the desert sun beating down mercilessly.